Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Uncle Pinocchio's Children's Tales. Get ready for amazing kids' stories with great morals and magic. I can't wait to share all my favorite tales with you. So snuggle up and get comfy. Are you ready? Let the adventure begin. Coming up next, story number 1.
Can a stone learn to feel emotions? This story hides a great moral that you'll discover right at the end. At the top of a cliff, where the wind whispers secrets, lived Poma, a volcanic stone who dreamed of knowing what joy was. She didn't roll, didn't speak, only observed the world from her crack, while the birds told stories of places she would never see. One day, a mole with huge glasses named Trun appeared, digging right beneath her base, searching for rare stones for his collection. "What a special shine!" exclaimed Trun, rubbing his whiskers. "I've never seen a stone that pulses with the light of the sunset." Poma felt something new, a kind of internal tingling, as if the mole's words had left an imprint on her hardness. Curious, Trun decided to speak to her every day. Although Poma didn't respond, he told her everything: his cave, his dreams, even his fear of the sun. Lunar cycles passed. Trun always returned, and each time he did, Poma's shine grew stronger without her understanding why. One afternoon, a fierce storm roared from the ocean. Lightning illuminated everything, and Trun didn't show up. Poma felt a void inside. The rock, which had never moved, trembled. It was as if something was pushing her from the center, an impulse that was impossible to explain. Trun was trapped in a ravine. His tunnel had collapsed, and for the first time, Poma wished she weren't an immobile stone. Without knowing how, her body began to crack. A green light, like life itself, sprouted from within her and traveled down the cliff. With a rumble that shook the ground, Poma rolled for the first time, breaking branches, leaping over rocks, defying her nature. She fell right in front of the ravine where Trun lay wounded. Her light guided a group of fireflies that alerted the valley's foxes. The wise, silent foxes rescued Trun, but no one understood how a stone had gotten there or why it was glowing. Trun, still weak, stroked her cracked surface. "Thank you, Poma. You knew how to feel when I didn't know how to ask for help." From that day on, Poma never returned to the cliff. She stayed by Trun's side, in a small cave surrounded by roots that vibrated with energy. The forest animals visited her for advice, as if in her silence, there were answers that no one else could provide. Over time, Poma understood that what she had felt wasn't magic, but love. A love that's unspoken, but transforms. Every time a heart nearby beat strongly, Poma shone. And every time someone cried, her light wrapped everything in tenderness. But something changed one night. Trun disappeared. He only left his glasses and a map carved with his paws on a piece of bark. The map pointed north toward the summit of Echo. Poma, with the help of the foxes, was carried there in complete silence. At the summit, she found a new crack, similar to the one that had once been her home. There a small obsidian figure waited. It was a stone shaped like a heart, made by Trun. In its center, a message: to feel is to live, even if you are a stone. Poma didn't cry, but a crack gently opened on her surface, and from it, a plant sprouted with petals that vibrated like her light. Each year, on the same date, the birds bring flowers to the crack. No one knows why, but everyone feels something warm when they get close. And even though Poma no longer speaks or moves, her energy continues to change the forest. Sometimes, the trunks whisper her name to the wind. They say that if you touch the stone with sincerity in your heart, you can understand what you truly feel, even if you can't say it out loud. Poma never knew what it was to be human, but she knew more about the soul than many who walk with feet and arms. Because you don't need to move to transform a world. Sometimes you just need to listen and dare to feel. Moral: even the most seemingly rigid can change if they learn to feel and connect with others. See you very soon with more magical stories that will take you to incredible worlds.
Coming up next, story number 2.
What if your teacher could turn words into butterflies? This story hides a powerful lesson you'll discover right at the end. At Willow Shadow School, there was a very special teacher. Her name was Mava, and she had an umbrella that floated even when it didn't rain. Mava didn't use chalk or blackboards. She taught with stardust, which she kept in tiny jars inside her blue leather bag. Every morning she greeted with an elegant bow, and the children noticed that when she blinked, her eyes released colorful sparks. Her classroom was inside a round library. The chairs levitated if someone lied, and the books whispered ideas if you caressed them. The students were unique too. There was a girl who thought in rhymes, a boy who didn't know how to laugh, and a snail that took notes with its slime. One Monday, Mava taught them about free thoughts. With a gesture, she tossed words into the air, and they turned into floating bubbles. Every word you think can fly, or fall like a stone, she said, as a bubble popped over a plant, making it bloom. The students clapped, except for Doro, the boy who didn't know how to laugh. He watched her in silence, without wonder or emotion. "Don't you like magic?" Mava asked with a velvet voice. "I don't think it's real," he replied without raising an eyebrow. Mava wasn't upset. She offered him a blank sheet of paper. "Draw what you feel. Don't think. Just trace." Doro took the pencil reluctantly. When he finished, the drawing trembled on the page. It was a shadow with huge eyes. Mava looked at it in silence, then folded it carefully. "What you drew isn't a monster. It's your unnamed sadness. Can I teach you to know it?" Doro didn't respond, but nodded very slightly. The next morning, the classroom was full of fog. The desks floated like boats. Mava smiled. "Today, we will travel inward." Each student boarded their desk. Mava waved her umbrella, and they all began to glide over a sea of ink that poured from the floor. They passed islands of memories, cliffs of shame, and clouds made of unanswered questions. No one spoke. Everyone watched in awe. Doro fell into a whirlpool of gray ink. When he opened his eyes, he was on a lonely beach with broken letters in the sand. A figure approached. It was his shadow with eyes, just like the drawing. It didn't speak, but walked beside him, as if it had always been waiting. "You're not bad," said Doro. The shadow hugged him, and for the first time, he felt warmth in his chest. He smiled. It was brief, but real. Then the classroom returned to its form. The other children had come back, except for Doro. His chair floated empty in the center of the room. Mava searched for him in the air, in the books, in the corners of thought, but didn't find him. Her face changed. For the first time, she hesitated. For days, class continued without him. The magic was still there, but it didn't dance the same. The laughter was softer. The words fell faster. One morning, a new notebook appeared on Doro's desk. It had a cover made of dry leaves and letters written in light. When opened, a song emerged. It was Doro's voice, now joyful, telling a story about a shadow that learned to sing. Mava smiled as she listened. She wasn't sad. Sometimes, those who don't believe in magic are the first to create it," she said gently. That night, Doro appeared in each student's dreams. He left new drawings and phrases that lit up the ceiling when they closed their eyes. Since then, at Willow Shadow School, whenever a student can't laugh, a blank notebook appears on their desk. The new teachers don't understand why, but Mava doesn't explain anymore. She just watches with her umbrella, waiting for the spark behind the silence. And when someone laughs for the first time, a small invisible applause is heard in the corners of the classroom. The students continue learning to fly with words, but now they also know what a shadow can reveal when you listen to it. Moral: true magic isn't in what you see, but in what you dare to feel, even if you don't understand it at first. See you very soon with more magical tales that will take you to incredible worlds.
Coming up next, story number 3.
What would you do if a snail could stop time? In this story, you'll discover how something so slow can teach you a great lesson in the end. Nopo was a snail with a transparent shell. Everyone in the forest made fun of him because he didn't shine or have pretty colors. "You look like a slime bubble," the fireflies would say. But Nopo just lowered his antennae and kept crawling without responding. His only friend was Rizzo, a mouse with a loose tooth and a broken watch. Together, they played guessing games with clouds and collected dry seeds. One day, Rizzo found a hole between the roots of an oak tree. "It smells weird," he said. Nopo got closer, and his shell shone for the first time. As they entered, a thick silence surrounded them. You couldn't hear the wind or the crickets. "Where are we?" asked Rizzo, without getting a reply. Nopo felt a tingling in his shell. Suddenly, the world stopped. Dewdrops floated, insects froze in midair. "I think your shell can stop time," Rizzo exclaimed. Nopo didn't know what to do, but for the first time, he didn't feel useless. For days, they experimented with the power. They froze the forest, stole honey from bees without being seen, played inside bubbles. But something started to change. Every time Nopo used the power, his shell grew duller. "Are you okay?" Rizzo would ask. "I'm tired, but I like being useful," Nopo replied. Even though his body no longer glowed, his friend looked at him with more affection than ever. One day, they heard a tremor. The roots of the forest creaked, and an old bat fell from the sky. "Time has been wounded," he said. "Someone has broken it, and now everything will age at once." Rizzo looked at Nopo in fear. "It was your shell by accident," he murmured. "What if I return to the hole?" Nopo asked. "It might fix everything, or you might disappear," said the bat, closing his eyes. Nopo looked at his friend. "Time is useless if there's no one to share it with," he said, and began crawling back to the oak. Rizzo cried, "I don't want to lose you," but Nopo just smiled. "You never lose someone who taught you to see the world differently," he said without stopping. When he reached the hole, his shell was already gray. He placed it gently in the center of the root circle, and a flash surrounded everything. The forest trembled. The drops fell, the crickets began to sing again, and the dry leaves rose as if autumn were breathing. Rizzo ran to the place, but Nopo was no longer there. Only a spiral of light remained carved into the ground, like a stone shell. The bat reappeared. Time has been repaired, but a brave heart paid for it with eternal silence. Rizzo stayed quiet for a long time. Then he took the broken watch and hung it on the highest branch of the oak, where the wind made a chime. Since then, whenever someone passed through the forest, they noticed that time moved more slowly, as if someone were caring for every second. One day, a little girl got lost among the trees. Rizzo found her asleep next to the spiral symbol. "Your friend saved me," she said upon waking. The mouse understood that Nopo's spirit lived in every pause, in every deep breath, and in the moments that are truly worth it. The forest animals began to tell his story. He was small, quiet, but he held time with his heart. No one laughed at the slow or the different again. They now knew that not everything invisible is useless. Rizzo grew up and had children. To each one, he told the story of the snail who learned to stop time just so his friend wouldn't feel alone. Sometimes, under the full moon, the oaks watch chimes without wind, and everyone knows it's Nopo waving from some invisible dimension. Because you don't need to run to change the world. Sometimes, you just need to know when to stop. And in the quietest corners where no one looks, time keeps turning slow, gentle, and eternal like a transparent shell. Moral: don't underestimate those who move more slowly, for they may be holding the most valuable thing you have, time. See you very soon with more magical stories that will take you to incredible worlds.
Coming up next, story number 4.
Can a paper boat sail across real oceans? This story holds a powerful moral that you'll discover right at the end. In a rain puddle, Peiko was born, a little paper boat with sails made of dry leaves and a huge longing to see the world beyond the garden. He wasn't an ordinary boat, his rudder was a fishbone, and inside he carried drawings of stars made by an unknown child. One day, a strong wind pushed him out of the puddle and hurled him into the sewer. Peiko shouted with excitement, "This is my chance to set sail." Through dark pipes, he floated into a canal that smelled of wilted flowers and carried soap bubbles like shining beacons. In the middle of the water, he met Luncha, a limping firefly who wore a clover leaf as a hat and guided lost boats with her light. "Where are you going, little paper boat?" asked Luncha. "Wherever the wind takes me, or the water pushes me," replied Peiko, unafraid. Together, they crossed flooded parks, dodged giant ducks, and sailed between the shovels of children digging rivers in the sand. Every place was a postcard in his memory, a fountain with golden coins, a drain pipe with moss murals, and a pond with sleeping swans. One afternoon, the sky darkened and a fierce storm caught up with them. Peiko was dragged by a violent current and Luncha disappeared. The water flung him into a lonely sewer. There, Peiko felt fear for the first time, his corners were getting too wet and started to creak. Just when he was about to give up, a warm gust lifted him. It was a mouse with a scarf made of petals named Teo. He flew in a gum balloon. Teo came down and looked at him. "You're the thinnest boat I've ever seen, but you have brave eyes." Peiko smiled with wrinkled gratitude. Teo tied him with a spiderweb thread and carried him over rooftops, wires, and branches. "You'll see the world from the air," he said, inflating his balloon more. From the heights, Peiko saw cities of tiny lights, children asleep on balconies, and cats following stars with their gaze. But the wind changed its mood. A furious gust tore the balloon apart and Peiko plummeted into a murky pond. Upon hitting the water, one of his sails tore. It hurt, but Peiko didn't sink. He barely floated toward the shore where something shone. It was Luncha. Her leg was bandaged, but her smile was huge. "I knew you'd keep sailing, even if you're made of wet paper." Together they sought shelter among the reeds. Peiko was bent, stained, but still dreamed of the sea. Luncha offered him a lotus leaf. Peiko climbed onto the leaf, and Luncha flew behind like a beacon. That's when they discovered something that would change their entire journey. The waters were beginning to rise, and not because of rain. A giant faucet had broken and was creating a new river that would carry him even farther. "If you take that river, you could cross the world," said Luncha. "But you might also fall completely apart." Peiko thought for a second. "I didn't come this far just to stay dry," he said, and jumped into the water with the leaf as his base, the broken sail, and a heart swollen with courage. The current took him through unknown streets, under bridges, past trains, and he waved to dogs who barked at him curiously. Along the way he saw signs, distant cities, and lights blinking in 1,000 languages. It was the real world, as vast as he had dreamed. Luncha, flying behind him, lit up the dark areas. Sometimes they were silent, sometimes they laughed. But they never stopped. Suddenly, a child in an empty plaza saw him pass by. He picked him up gently and said, "Who let go of a wish shaped like a boat?" The child didn't keep him, nor dry him. He placed him in a puddle, gave him a push, and whispered, "Go farther, I'll keep imagining you." Paco continued his journey. He was no longer white, nor perfect, but every wrinkle told his story. Now he knew he wasn't fragile, but brave. And even though he was just a paper boat, he crossed cities, met strange friends, and carried a message anyone could read without words. Moral: what seems weak can go very far if it dares to move forward, even afraid, even broken. See you very soon with more magical tales that will take you to incredible worlds.
Coming up next, story number 5.
Can a ball be happy if it doesn't know how to bounce? This story hides a great moral you'll discover right at the end. Pompon was a shiny rubber ball, red like a cherry, but he had a problem. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't bounce. While the other balls jumped across courts and rolled through parks, he only tumbled clumsily and stayed still. "You're no good for playing," said a squeaky-voiced tennis ball. "Not even for decoration," added a football with golden stitches. Pompon lived in a drawer full of forgotten toys, between a handleless jump rope and a spinning top with a broken tip. Every night, he dreamed of flying through the air, bouncing off the ground, and soaring up again gracefully like the balls in commercials. One day, a girl named Alma opened the drawer looking for something different to play with. Her eyes stopped on Pompon. "What a strange ball," she said, and threw him to the ground. Pompon landed with a sad plop and lay there like he was asleep. "Maybe you're not broken, just special," Alma whispered, and decided to take him to her garden full of games and secrets. There, Pompon met Bracha, a giant paintbrush that drew clouds in the air, and Zipa, a stringless kite that still managed to fly. "You don't know how to bounce?" asked Zipa. "I don't know how to come down." Pompon felt a little better. Maybe being different wasn't so bad. Alma invented a new game. She tossed Pompon down a slide of dry leaves, where he spun like a top and made everyone laugh. Each day they invented a new adventure: hide and seek with flowers, races with snails, or zip lines made from vines and forks. Pompon didn't bounce, but he did float a little when he rolled downhill. Alma said he was like a bubble with a heart. One afternoon, a boy named Max arrived at the garden, a sports and order fanatic. When he saw Pompon, he burst out laughing. "This is a ball? It doesn't bounce," he shouted, stomping on him carelessly. Alma ran to rescue him with tears in her eyes. Max mocked, "Balls that don't bounce are useless." Then he left, bouncing his brand new ball off the walls. That night, Pompon didn't speak. He stayed silent, staring at the stars Alma had stuck to her bedroom ceiling. The next day, a mild tremor shook the neighborhood. A flower pot fell from the second floor, heading straight for Max's head. But before it could hit him, something red and soft shot out from a bush and knocked it aside just in time. It was Pompon. Max was speechless. "You saved me." Alma nodded. He didn't bounce, but he flew when it mattered most. From then on, Max stopped making fun. He took Pompon everywhere, not as a ball, but as a friend who was always there. Pompon still didn't bounce, but he didn't care anymore. He had learned to roll with style, to fall without fear, and to save with softness. Bracha painted a great colorful track on the ground. Zipa glided above them all, while Pompon spun happily like a joyful wheel. One day, a new toy seller arrived at the park. All the kids wanted balls that glowed and bounced on their own. Pompon trembled. Would he be forgotten again? But Alma held him tight. "No other has your soul," she whispered. And then something unexpected happened. A baby was crawling toward the street. Alma shouted, and Pompon rolled like never before. He hit the stroller just in time, stopping it before it crossed. Everyone applauded. The ball that doesn't bounce saved him. From that day on, every child wanted to meet Pompon. Not for how he bounced, but for how he showed up right when he was needed. Instead of courts, they used him to make up stories, care for plants, or soothe the little ones when they cried. Moral: you don't need to be like the others to be valuable. The important thing is to discover what you're made for and use it with heart. See you very soon with more magical stories that will take you to incredible worlds.
Coming up next, story number 6.
What would you do if a hat could tell you what the wind whispers? At the end of this story, you'll find a moral worth discovering. On the edge of Cloud Shadow Village lived Filippo, a mole inventor who wore magnifying glasses and built things out of shiny trash. His strangest creation was a pointy hat made of tin, wool, and dry leaves. He claimed it could hear the wind's secrets. "It's not magic, it's science," Filippo repeated as he walked through the fields with the hat trembling on his head. The neighbors mocked him. "That mole has lost his mind," they said, but Filippo just smiled and pointed at the sky. One morning, the hat whispered, "Someone's in danger on Echo Hill." Filippo's eyes widened in surprise. He ran through bushes, tripping over roots, until he reached a giant rock. There he found someone unexpected, a broken kite. "Help," the kite whispered with a thread-thin voice. "I fell from the sky and no one has looked for me since." Filippo gently gathered her pieces and brought them to his workshop. "You're not broken, just forgotten," he said, stitching with care. The kite's name was Rena. She had blue stripes and a crayon-drawn smile. Her only wish was to fly again. Day after day, Filippo worked while the hat kept hearing the wind's whispers. Higher, stronger. One cloudy noon, Rena was ready. Filippo climbed to the tallest roof in the village and released her into the sky. Rena danced among clouds, spun above towers, and waved at birds. "I'm alive again!" she cried with her breeze voice. The neighbors peeked out. "Is that Filippo's kite?" they murmured. "And how did he know she was there?" Filippo smiled. "It was the hat," he said. Everyone laughed, thinking it was a joke. Except one. Peepo, a toad with a buttoned scarf, approached silently. "I heard something too. The wind spoke to me last night," he confessed. "What did you hear?" asked Filippo. Peepo swallowed hard. "That a tree is sad in the hollow log forest." Filippo didn't hesitate. "Let's go!" Rena guided them from the sky. The hat trembled, and the toad hopped nervously. In the quietest clearing of the forest, an old tree wept resin. "My leaves no longer tell stories," it said dimly. "What if new leaves never grow?" Peepo asked. "Maybe we can help you remember your tales." Filippo hooked speakers to the trunk. Rena cast dancing shadows with her flight, and the hat caught the wind's sighs. Soon, the tree began to murmur ancient tales of giggling elves, talking rain, and sleepy suns. Animals came to listen. The forest came back to life. "Thank you," said the tree. "Now my roots can dream again." Filippo returned to the village, but something had changed. They no longer called him strange, but the wise one with the whispering hat. Every week, someone new asked for help. a shapeless cloud, a clock with no tick-tock, a stone that wanted to be a swing. Filippo listened, researched, and helped. But one day, the hat spoke for the last time. My mission is complete. That night, the hat rose alone into the sky, spinning like a shooting star. Filippo didn't cry, he just waved. Pippo and Rina hugged him. "Now you're the one who hears the wind," said Rina. From then on, Filippo taught everyone how to build their own whispering hats. Not to hear, but to feel. The wind was no longer just a breeze. It was message, emotion, and hope, waiting to be understood. Moral: sometimes those who seem the strangest are the ones who listen to the world with the most open heart. See you very soon with more magical stories that will take you to incredible worlds.
Coming up next, story number 7.
What would you do if a compass led you to where you fear the most? At the end of this story, you'll find a moral worth discovering. High on a misty hill lived Luno, a snail who dreamed of exploring, though he had never strayed from his favorite leaf. His only companion was Brisna, a firefly that glowed only during the day and hid when night fell, afraid of the dark. One day, a small rusty compass fell from the sky. It didn't point north, it spun wildly every time someone touched it. "Maybe it shows you what you need to find," said Brisna, unsure. Luno, curious, touched it with his antenna, and the needle stopped pointing south. "South? But that's where the echo cave is, where everything is heard, but nothing is seen," whispered Brisna, trembling. Luno, though scared, decided to follow the compass. "If it wants to show me something, I have to find out what it is," he said. On his journey, he came across puddles that reflected his doubts and stones that whispered secrets he had never spoken. Brisna flew above him, shining brighter than ever, although each step south made her light flicker. One night, the compass began spinning rapidly and stopped in front of a black stone with a glowing crack. From the crack came blue smoke and a deep voice, "Why come if you know you're afraid?" Luno swallowed hard. "Because I no longer want fear to guide me. I want to understand it." The stone split in two, revealing a path that led down into the cave. Brisna hesitated, but followed him inside. Inside, everything was silent. The compass vibrated and its needle vanished. Now there were only echoes of his own thoughts. "You're no good for traveling, you're too slow, you'll never see what's beyond," said the walls, repeating familiar voices. Luno shrank, but then whispered, "Those aren't my voices. They're the ones I learned to hear." As he spoke, the echo changed. "Then what is your real voice?" it asked. The snail, bravely, replied, "I may be small, yes, but that doesn't mean I can't be brave." A gust of wind pushed him forward, and the cave lit up from within. Brisna glowed intensely, more than ever. At the bottom of the cave, they found a mirror covered in lunar dust. Luno saw his reflection and, for the first time, didn't see a fragile snail, but a traveler. When he touched the mirror, it turned to water and let a golden light shine through. Brisna, not knowing how, was no longer afraid of the dark. "It was your light that scared me, because I didn't understand it." They left the cave through a path that hadn't existed before. The compass floated beside them, transparent and silent. When they reached the top of another hill, the compass dissolved like smoke. "You don't need it anymore," said Brisna. Luno smiled. "Because now I know where I want to go, even without a map." And together, with the starry sky as their guide, they chose not to return, but to keep exploring each different night. But something had changed. Every time Luno spoke with confidence, new invisible paths appeared ahead. Fear, once his enemy, now whispered useful warnings and helped him choose more wisely. The compass that once spun aimlessly didn't point to places, but to moments when you had to choose with your heart. Moral: sometimes, the most confusing path leads us to discover what we're truly capable of facing. See you again soon with more magical tales that will take you to incredible worlds.
And that brings our journey through these magical tales to a gentle close. Each story whispered a little lesson, sparked a smile, or warmed a heart. Thank you for sharing these moments of wonder with Uncle Pinocchio. Until our next adventure, keep dreaming, keep imagining, and never stop believing in magic.